Hey, shalom everyone. This is Chris Shoemaker, also known as Yehuda ben Shomer, and welcome to the counting of the Omer, 50 days to spiritual refinement. Today is a very special day of the counting of the Omer. It makes the 33rd day, which is 4 weeks and 5 days of the Omer. So the theme for the week is Hod, glory, which is also the theme for the day. So the overall theme is the glory of his glory. And we're going to continue reading Psalm 78, verses 40 through 55. But first, I want to tell you why it's such a special day. Because the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer is called Lag BaOmer. So I'm going to read to you all about it from an article that I wrote many moons ago about this very day. So, Lag BaOmer takes place during the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer, which counts up to the high holy day of Shavuot, Pentecost. The 33rd day of the Omer takes place on ER 18 on the Hebrew calendar. Now, Lag BaOmer itself is not a high holy day, but a traditional Jewish holiday recounting the Talmudic account of 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva who died at the hands of Adonai because of a plague during the counting of the Omer, because his students didn't show proper respect towards one another. The 33rd day is when the plague ended, so to commemorate this, we traditionally have our haircut at this time, so as to show that we have no more reason to mourn, but to rejoice. Because in Judaism, when you're in mourning, you just leave your hair unkempt. So cutting your hair symbolizes that you're over your mourning period and you're beginning to rejoice. So on this day, Jewish children traditionally do not get their haircuts until the age of 3, when on this day they get their haircut for the very first time. Also, commemorated on this day is the death of one of the great sages of the Mishnah era, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who ironically was one of the surviving students of Rabbi Akiva and is believed to have authored the mystical Kabbalistic Jewish work called the Zohar. It's also traditional to light bonfires, symbolizing the light of Torah that shone through the Zohar, which Rabbi Yochai supposedly authored. Also, bonfires were set to signal war and thus reminds us of the Jewish revolt against Rome by General Bar Kokhba. Since we have bonfires, naturally we cook out on this day, as well as play with bows and arrows, because it's said that a rainbow never shone during the lifetime of Rabbi Yochai. Because of him, it was considered a righteous generation, and so the thought of God destroying the world never occurred to God's mind. So therefore, a rainbow wasn't necessary to be seen to remind God not to destroy the world. So, a rainbow was never seen to remind God to destroy the world during this time. It also commemorates the temporary victories by the weaponry and the army of General Bar Kokhba, who revolted against Rome. But because Rabbi Akiva foolishly endorsed Bar Kokhba as the Messiah, the revolt ultimately failed, because we know that he wasn't the Messiah. This is also when the Nazarene Jews broke off and split off in a major way from the mainstream Judaism, because they were considered traitors because they refused to endorse General Bar Kokhba as the Messiah. They're like, we know who the Messiah is, and this guy ain't it. So there's also a legend that Rabbi Akiva and his surviving students would go out into the wilderness to study Torah at a time when it was illegal to do so under the Roman occupation, and the bow and arrows were taken along so as not to raise suspicion of their true intent to study Torah. So let's go ahead and read Psalm 78, verses 40 through 55. How often they rebelled against him in the wilderness and grieved him in the desert. They constantly tested God and provoked the Holy One of Israel. They did not remember his power shown on the day he redeemed them from the foe, when he performed the miraculous signs in Egypt and his wonders in the region of Zoan. He turned their rivers into blood, and they could not drink from the streams. He sent among them swarms of flies, which fed on them, and frogs, which devastated them. He gave their crops to the caterpillar, and the fruit of their labor to the locust. He killed their vines with hail, and the sycamore trees with a flood. He handed over livestock to hail, and the cattle to the lightning bolts. He sent his burning anger against them, fury, indignation, and calamity, and a band of deadly messengers. He cleared a path for his anger, and he did not spare them from death, but delivered their lives to the plagues. He struck all the firstborn of Egypt, the first progeny of the tents of Ham. He led his people out like sheep and guided them like a flock in the wilderness. He led them safely, and when and they were not afraid. But the sea covered their enemies, and he brought them to his holy land, to the mountain his right hand acquired. He drove out nations before them, and he appointed their inheritance by lot, and he settled the tribes of Israel in their tents. Let's go ahead and close out this time with a word of prayer. Abba Adonai God, we live in a material world and dependent upon so many material things. Help us to realize that you are all that we'll ever need now and forever. In the name of Yeshua Messiah we pray. Amen. Thanks for watching. Shalom. Shavua Tov. Have a great day.